All righty. I will call to order the Murray City Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, August 7th, 2025. It is 6:34 p.m. Present this evening are Commissioners Pete Hristo, Jake Pearson, Aaron Hildreth, Katie Rogers, Peter Kling, myself, Michael Richards. Excused tonight is Commissioner Hacker. From staff, we also have excused tonight Zach Smallwood and David Rogers. But we have Ruth Ruach here with us, Chad Wilkinson, and Mark Richardson. As a reminder, if you have a cell phone, please silence it. This meeting is being recorded for public record. We welcome you here tonight. Glad you can make it. We always are grateful to have people participate in our public meetings. Just a couple etiquette items. When the time comes to make a comment on an agenda item, we ask that you speak at the microphone for the recording. And we also ask that you state your name and address for the minutes. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes for each person that wants to make a comment. I'll give you a bit of a grace period, but then I'll ask you to close your comments. Once your item that you're here for is over, you're welcome to leave. We just ask that you do it quietly so that we can continue our remaining items. If you're viewing this meeting online on the live stream, the only way to make a public comment is to email the Planning Commission at murray.utah.gov. Unfortunately, if you post a comment on Facebook or YouTube, it will not be seen. All right, so let's start our agenda. And the first agenda item is the approval of minutes from Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any changes that need to be made?
No.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Kling and a second from Commissioner Hristo. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved. Agenda item number 2, any conflicts of interest for tonight?
No.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 3, approval of finding of facts. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the findings of fact?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me just read them really quick. Legacy Materials, Automotive Addiction Museum, and the 1151 East Subdivision. Any changes or corrections?
No.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the findings of facts for Legacy Materials, Automotive Addiction Museum, and 1151 East Subdivision.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Pearson to approve the findings of fact. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Rogers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the findings of fact have been approved. All right, now for the fun agenda items. Our first agenda item is Automotive Addiction Museum. This should be pretty easy. Is the applicant here? Thank you. And Ruth is presenting, so I'll turn the time over to her.
Thank you, Commissioner. So here we have a conditional use permit amendment for the property at 158 East, 4500 South. Just as a reminder, a conditional use permit was already approved for this property for a car museum, Automotive Addiction Museum. So you've seen the site details before. The applicant would like to add auto sales use on the property, and so this conditional use permit needs to be amended. The property is located south of 4500 and east of State Street. It's located within the CD Commercial Development Zone. The key thing to note is that all of the zoning and development standards for the site will remain the same. So parking standards, the access points, and landscaping requirements will not change with the auto sales use. Notices for this item were mailed and staff has not received any comments. And so for our findings, staff finds that the proposed use of auto sales is permitted within the CD zone, subject to conditional use permit approval. With conditions, the proposed use and property will comply with the standards of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance, and the proposed amendment is not contrary to the goals and objectives of the Murray City General Plan in this area. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit amendment to allow auto sales at 158 East, 4500 South, subject to these 3 conditions. And I'm happy to take any questions. Okay.
Thank you, Ruth. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Can the applicant please, Can the applicant please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record?
Hi, ER Coren, 7782 Dick Crescendo Drive, Eagle Mountain, Utah, 84005.
Thank you. Have you had an opportunity to review the conditions, and are you able to comply with them?
Yes, we can comply with the conditions.
Thank you. Any additional information you want to provide?
Nope, just looking forward to being here, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just so, when we met the last time,
Yes,
the nature of your auto sales was more of an intermediary or broker for
Correct.
existing members that were storing the cars there. It's not a auto sales in terms of a traditional dealership.
yeah, we're not going to be bringing a bunch of cars and storing them outside or anything like that. We have cars that are stored inside the building that will provide online, will show online and do auto sales in that fashion. So more consigned vehicles than inventory vehicles.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I'll open up the meeting for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion amongst the commissioners? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve a conditional use permit amendment to allow auto sales at 158 East, 4500 South.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Hildreth to approve the conditional use permit amendment to allow auto sales at 158 East, 4500 South, subject to the three conditions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
You've got 3 seconds. Okay, I'll have a second from Commissioner Rogers. Any discussion? All right, Ruth, can you take a roll call?
Commissioner Hildreth,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Kling,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Herstel,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
or Chair Richards, sorry.
Thank you. Motion is passed, so congratulations. Good luck. All right, moving right along, agenda item number 5, AJ HVAC Property Services. I believe Ruth is also presenting. Is the applicant here? Thank you.
Thank you again. So here we have a request for a major home occupation for an HVAC and property services business. The property is located at 1512 East Greenfield Avenue, off of Greenfield Avenue, adjacent to I-215. The lot is 0.2 acres in size, and it's zoned R18, surrounded by other R18 properties. So the applicant proposes to use a portion of their home as an office for their business. Their business includes HVAC services, landscaping, and roofing services. The applicant has stated that employees and customers will not visit the home, and that the actual work of those services will be performed off-site and away from this location. And the floor plan here shows that the office will be located in the main house and not in the garage, and that the driveway will be only used by the applicant. 4 notices were sent to owners of abutting properties for the applicant's residence, and 1 comment was received regarding parking. This proposal is designed to have very little impact on the surrounding area. The hours of operation, the business details, and our findings are detailed in the staff report. And based on those findings, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a request for a major home occupation to allow an office for an HVAC and property services business from this property, subject to the following conditions. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you again. Questions?
Yeah, Ruth, did we confirm that the intent is not to have clients at the residence?
We did confirm, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, can the applicant please come to the podium? And as a reminder, please state your name and your address for the record.
It's Perla Lee, and it's 1512 East Greenfield Avenue, Murray, Utah 40121.
Have you had an opportunity to read the conditions, and are you able to comply with them?
Correct. Mhm.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, so regarding the parking, there would be like no customers or employees coming in, so nothing would really change. I would just be taking calls and processing invoices in that office that we showed.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And the question?
Yep.
And my understanding is you're the occupant of the home as well?
Right,
Okay. So you have designated office space for the home?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can have a seat. I'll now open up the meeting for a public comment. All right, seeing none, I guess I should ask, do we have any emails? Okay. Yeah, so seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion amongst the commissioners? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Chair, I make a motion to approve the request for a major home occupation to allow an office for an HVAC and property services business from the property addressed 1512 East Greenfield Avenue, subject to the following 6 conditions.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Kling to approve the request for major home occupation to allow an office for an HVAC and property services business from the property addressed 1512 East Greenfield Avenue, subject to the 6 conditions. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. I have a second from Commissioner Hristo. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Ruth, roll call.
Commissioner Kling,
Yes.
Commissioner Hristo,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Hildreth,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Chair Richards.
Yes. Congratulations. The motion is passed. Good luck. All right, and to our final agenda item, the Villa Property Management. Is the applicant here? Thank you. And Chad is presenting. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, I might at some point switch over to the laptop. There's some additional resources there if we need them, including links to the code. But for now, just want to go through just a brief background. This is a request, an application for a land use map change from our general plan. This would be going from office land use to our village and centers mixed use land use, and then for a zoning change from the GO zone to the VMU zone. Just give a little background on the property. This is the property outlined in blue. It's there on 6600 South. Some of the surrounding land uses that you can see there, you've got to the north, there's an existing skilled nursing facility. There's a credit union to the west. To the south, across the street, there are some offices there and also a park and ride. I-215 is just further to the south. Further to the north, Wheeler Farm, and actually just to the north and east, Wheeler Farm butts this property. And the property is also located on transit routes as identified in UTA's planning. It's adjacent to those routes, as well as having routes that run by it at certain times of the year. This is the zoning for the property. Current zoning is GO zoning. It's that light blue color. As you can see some of the surrounding zoning. Mostly the surrounding zoning is that same. Of course, Wheeler Farm has the open space zone, and there's some A1 zoning directly to the west. In terms of the future land use map, again, this is currently planned in our general plan for office. Office use is what's there. The existing hotel on the site is an existing legal nonconforming use within that GO zone. It's been there for many years, operated as a hotel for a long time. These are the zoning standards. The applicant is proposing, as part of this development, to construct a affordable housing multifamily development. So you can see that as part of the VMU standards, multifamily dwellings are a permitted use. This is again, one of many uses that are allowed there in that VMU zone. This development also includes something that's a little bit unique that we don't see a lot in Murray, but that's a development agreement. So we have the applicant has approached the city about this particular development, and in looking and reviewing that development, we've determined that in this particular case, a development agreement is warranted. So I'm going to take just a minute and step back from the presentation and just talk a little bit about why we might consider a development agreement here in this case. As we look at general plan amendments, which is what this includes, this application includes that general plan amendment, we need to look at, is there something that justifies that amendment to our general plan? General plans, of course, go through a big public process. Some of you were involved in that public process in 2017, I'm sure, where we looked at what the appropriate land uses were for our city. So we want to be very careful. We want to be really circumspect about whether or not we amend that. Some of the reasons why you might amend a general plan may include that there may have been an error that was originally approved, something you need to correct because there was a lot of information coming, we missed something. Another big one, which we believe applies in this case, is has there been a change of circumstances since that general plan has been adopted? In this case, we do feel like there's justification for a change in circumstances that justifies consideration. So when the applicant approached us about this particular property, as listed in the staff report, this property has some unique characteristics. One of those has to do with some crime that has been occurring on the property. There's been a general decline in the property over the years. This has been a place where there's been a lot of crime that's occurred. It's well documented. We've had a lot of police calls to this property. And so there was a general desire from the city to see some kind of redevelopment occur on this property that could help with that issue. In addition, as we talked in our pre-meeting, just generally speaking, over the last several years, especially since the pandemic, there's been a change in the need and the demand for office space. So as we looked at that map before, you notice that that designation of office space, that's something that's worth looking at. The existing hotel use is an existing legal non-conforming use, but the idea for the future land use of this would have been additional offices. So that's, again, another thing in light of what occurred between 2017 when the general plan was adopted and now, is there justification to look at this property to see if it's a good fit for something else, some other type of land use. As we talked to the applicant, we decided that, yeah, it was a good time to look at the land use for this property and see if there was some other use that could hopefully mitigate some of those issues that we've had or even address some of the issues that we've had over the years with this particular property. As we looked at this, though, as the applicant proposed their development, which was to convert this existing hotel to multifamily affordable units, we noted that the zoning that would most closely fit the amount of units that they would like to have there on this property was one of our mixed-use zones, the VMU in particular. And as staff discussed this with the applicant, we were concerned about making sure that this truly was a mixed-use development, that we would have some provision, some kind of guardrails to make sure that what was built on the site was a mixed-use development. The tool to get there is this development agreement. That's why we have proposed to you and recommend approval if you should decide that this is an appropriate general plan amendment and zone change, that the right tool is to use a development agreement. That will make sure that we know exactly what type of development is going to be built on the site. So back to that development agreement discussion. You can see the development agreement addresses many things. Primarily, though, we have a couple of things that are addressed there. One is that this will have a residential component, as we talked about, 102 residential units. There would be some commercial space. In the development agreement, it calls out at least 5,000 square feet of commercial space that has to be built. In addition to commercial space, though, this has to be commercial space that's open to the general public. So we didn't want to have commercial space. Sometimes we see things proposed like a gym or a leasing office that folks want to classify as commercial space, office space. So as part of the development agreement, we stipulated that this had to be commercial space that was open for the general public. It could be uses that support the low-income housing, the affordable housing, development that's being proposed, but they still had to be open to the general public. Other provisions of the development agreement require compliance with just general city codes, the VMU standards, and all the other codes that go along with that. With this development, I want to just go briefly through what the applicant has proposed as part of the development agreement. You can see the commercial space that's proposed along the front of the building. That's required by the VMU zone, that we have those commercial spaces close to the street up front. They've proposed to change some of the units that are there now and create commercial spaces where those units are to accommodate the requirement for that commercial space in the development. So that's a little bit hard to see on the plan, but over in these areas, let's see if I can highlight that for the audience. So over in these areas, you'd have commercial space that would be required and to be built. We did send out public notice. We had, when this was written, when the presentation was put together earlier this week, we had received 4. We've received some subsequent public comments. All of those public comments via email have been forwarded to the Planning Commission, and you have access to those. There were various concerns expressed by members of the public in those public comments. I want to take some time to talk about the findings. Now, whenever we have a zone change, whenever we have a general plan amendment, we make findings. And in this case, the VMU goes a step further and tells us what those findings need to be. In order for us to approve a VMU zone, we have to meet a certain set of findings. There has to be 5 of these goals that are up there on the screen met by a development. So as we've reviewed the particular development that's been proposed, we have found that the development can meet those 5 findings that are required. So the findings that staff has looked at, finding A, resulting in a high-quality redevelopment of commercial property. We noted that this has been a property that's been in decline for some time, and that this proposal would include redevelopment of that commercial property. Criteria B would be to retain or rehabilitate the commercial use of the property, a significant portion of the property area. So they are rehabilitating a significant portion of that property area and maintaining a commercial use there. Criteria C, facilitating the adaptive reuse of existing commercial structures. Again, hotels are considered to be a commercial structure, not a residential structure, and the proposal does propose to rehabilitate that or reuse that existing commercial structure. Increasing local access to commercial services for both in-project residents as well as the residents of the immediate surrounding area. Again, those businesses that would be in those commercial spaces would be open to the public. Promoting a greater variety of housing options. There's a critical need for affordable housing in the state of Utah. That's been well documented. We talk about that a lot in the media, but this is an opportunity to provide some of that affordable housing in Murray. Next, promote opportunities for life cycle housing and housing for moderate income households. Again, this is providing for some of that housing for moderate income households. There's another criteria that we looked at, which was criteria H, creating and contributing to a sense of place and community. Again, we did find that meets that criteria. So staff has reviewed this with approval of a development agreement. We would recommend that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for this proposed zone change. Before I open up for questions, I did want to mention, just for the sake of those from the public that are here, the process that this will go through. So this is the first step of a 2-step process. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council has the ability to either follow that recommendation or make a decision of their own based on, again, making some findings. This, again, will not be the last time this item will be heard. It will go to the City Council likely sometime in September. That will be published at a future date. But that's likely the time frame for that. So there will be another opportunity for the public to weigh in on this zone change. One other very critical component is, just for the sake of those who are in the audience, again, the Planning Commission and City Council are given pretty broad discretion on general plan amendments and zone changes. You have a standard of review, which is reasonably debatable. So as you consider this item tonight, you have the ability to make your own findings and to make your decision and recommendation based on that broad discretion that's given by state code to you. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can. The applicant's here and can also answer questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Chad, where have we applied the VMU in Murray?
This would be the first application of this zone. Yeah, the sister zone of this, the CMU, has been applied. That's the same general plan designation, but a different zone. That's been applied over at the former Best Buy Barnes & Noble site just over here off of State Street. But that's the only other place where this general plan designation has been applied.
And have we done any recent development agreements?
Oh, I don't think so. It's been a long time. There are some development agreements we've done that are part of redevelopment agency agreements where we are actually contributing funds. This one, of course, we're not, there's no funds going out from the city on this, no subsidy, but that's where we've typically seen development agreements is in those types of areas. But I can't think of one in the recent, I can't think of one for a long, long time, actually, so.
When will this development agreement get drafted and executed?
So the development agreement's drafted. You've got a copy of it in your packet tonight. The execution of it would be contingent on the city council deciding to approve that. The development agreement, just like the zone change, is a legislative decision. State code enables cities to enter into development agreements, but some of the jurisprudence, the court cases related to development agreements have found that they are a legislative action just like that zone change, and so they are subject to the same type of review as a zone change would be.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning the guardrails that, make this move along. I'm curious, and I had asked this in the pre-meeting, can we set a timeline on the development? And it sounds like we can.
Sure, yeah, you can. There's not a current timeline in the development agreement, but you can set a deadline for completion, yeah.
I think we discussed in the pre-meeting also that we'd be taking another look at this down the road.
So the planning commission will have a review authority over the administrative portion of this. So this gives some entitlement, but there'll still be a requirement to come back for planning commission approval for the site plan review. Essentially, it's there's a different name for it in the VMU zone, but you'll have a chance to look at the master site plan for the property through that approval process. What we've got in front of you in the exhibits to the development agreement is fairly conceptual, and we'll have to get a little more detailed as we go on.
And the staff monitors the progress on that to make sure it's adhering to the original spirit of the development agreement?
Absolutely. In the development agreement, in fact, there is a provision that says that there is some discretion given to staff for minor changes, but there's also discretion given to staff to say it's not a minor change and bring it back to this body for review.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks.
Can the applicant please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record?
Hi, my name's Keith Warburton. My address is 244 East Stonebridge Drive, Draper, Utah, 84020.
Thank you. Can you actually put up the conditions again?
There's no conditions, but they're findings, yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, the findings.
Maybe you want the recommendation, is that?
Yeah,
what you're
that
looking
one.
for? Okay.
So I guess the question is, with all the work you've done with the city to get this project going, are you able to comply with the guardrails and all of the, I forget, what do we call it, the development agreement?
Yes, and they're appreciated, so yeah.
Thank you. Anything that you want to add to the public comment?
Not at this time, but I can answer any questions.
Yeah, I think we have a few questions.
Great.
Go ahead.
Can you, I've looked at the floor plans and I'm making some assumptions here, so I'm hoping you can clarify them. But to me,
Yes.
it looks like for the commercial space, you're tearing down a wall. For all the other apartments, they're going to be the existing structure. Is that correct?
We don't have a final architectural plan yet that we would, this is conceptual, but the idea would be is to keep it as intact for cost savings, right? To keep it intact as possible. These are former, I guess they're currently large hotel rooms. They're, extended stay. Most of them already have kitchens in them. It's nice. They also have fire suppression in them, but we would make the commercial space accommodate, the commercial use that it would be intended for. We've had people inquire as far as like a laundromat and a dog spa, some things like that would be, we would do a tenant improvement for those spaces for that tenant that would want to lease that space. And so that would be a change. The property currently has 142 hotel doors, we have to go down to 102. And so there would be some consolidation there and, either larger units or amenity spaces like a gathering room or a shared large kitchen that you could do. If you wanted guests to come over and you're inviting, 10 people, they're not going to fit in your studio apartment. So we could do something like that. But those are all to be done through an architectural process that has to go through a building permit with the building department.
Okay, so it's your understanding you will have to get a building permit for all these
Yeah,
units?
we would, so we would have to come with the site plan, building, full architectural plans. Usually in these kind of properties, the two biggest issues that you run into are ADA, accessibility, and fire suppression. Luckily for a cost savings, there's already fire suppression in this building, so we would have to comply with, city code for those ADA standards, and a lot of the times we would make changes inside the units as far as doorway entries. If it's a type A unit where you'd have wheelchair accessibility, that would have to be, something that we'd have to comply with in those plans with the building department.
Are you planning on doing any type of renovation to the outside of the building?
Yes. Have you seen the outside and the current condition of the property it's a blight. We've done this a lot. We've done it on a lot of properties. Typically what you find is these properties become a high crime area. Then the next thing to go is the rental income, and then the property owners stop taking care of landscaping, and their flag changes 3 times from a Six to a Choice Hotel to a something else, and then the crime picks up. We'll come in, we'll make the changes to make it, aesthetically pleasing to those who go by it, to our neighbors, and make it, a nice property.
If we wanted, if the planning commission desired to put a time limit on this development agreement, what would be a reasonable time limit for you?
I think a reasonable time frame on it might be 2 years, would be something that would be, because we would plan on closing on the property right after it would be approved. We've gone through an extensive process for the financing, including a county TEFRA hearing for the type of funding that would come into this property. And so we're ready to close and would do that quickly. But then the next steps would be we would have to have architectural plans done, engineering done. Those would all have to go to the building department, and the building department could take 6 months to get a building permit on a property like this, is what I would suspect. And then we would probably have 6 months of renovations and then a lease-up timeframe.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Sir, what do you envision the residents to be? Because these are studios, so.
They are, and we have had all kinds of residents come into our properties. One of the biggest demographics coming in recently has been a senior-aged population. A lot of the time they find themselves running out of income and the ability to afford what is now becoming, the rent standards in Utah are so high. And so we do see a lot of, senior couples will come in and rent one, especially on a ground level unit. We have recommendations that come from about every nonprofit organization across the county. Will recommend people to us. A lot of those people have to have some sort of income that would meet those standards. A lot of the time, like a vet or someone on Social Security income that could afford it. And then they would qualify in those housing guidelines that we set on the property. So it's a pretty wide variety.
So basically, this accommodates maybe 2 people per
Yeah.
unit?
Mhm.
And I walked around the property recently. Are there elevators to get up to the second floor?
There
At the
aren't.
88?
It's a 2-story walk-up with exterior corridor, and it's kind of nice because it already kind of is similar to what an apartment style of a development would look like versus a new hotel. So typically when we take a property like this out of the marketplace, it does a boost to hospitality because it takes, kind of units off the market and then allows the new efficient hotels to come in and have a better chance of succeeding. So that's typically the smallest lot you can do, a 4-story brick looking home 2 suites kind of building that is super efficient. And then the hotel guys can really make that work from a commercial standpoint. A big property like this is difficult for hoteliers just because you can imagine their type of upkeep versus, those interior corridor type properties. So this one actually suits itself more to apartments than it actually does to a hotel.
For
my opinion.
ADA purposes, would you need to have an elevator? to
Well,
get to-
those units would go on the bottom floor. And so the things that we would have to do, for example, if there is not currently an ADA ramp or something like that to allow access with a wheelchair, we would have to do, a concrete repair or cut in order to make that compliant to code. So that's where those units would be.
And would you maintain the open space and the landscaping that's around it now?
Yes, yeah.
I have a question. Can you tell me about any kind of proposed security, like alarms, cameras, anything to prevent the crime from coming back?
Yes.
After the-
We've usually, cameras are a must. You have to have them even if you were just doing your own, ground up apartment complex. We would want to have security cameras, especially around parking, things like that. And then, as far as like on-site security, typically not in this apartment type setting. I think with it being permanent supportive housing, there could be some security necessary. We've done it on our properties. For example, we have one property on North Temple that is a shelter property, but that is wildly different and it has 24-hour security. So we're used to security, but we would have strict guidelines that you'd have in any kind of property that if there's a lease violation, it would go to an eviction and that kind of process.
So I know the extended stay, they're usually like week to week, month to month. Are the leases on these going to be like at least a year?
They're annual.
Annual, okay.
Consistency in the tenants is highly desirable for the project success. Just from an economic standpoint and a community standpoint. What you have now there is the high turnover, the week to week coming and going, a lot of drug use and things like that.
So it currently operates it continues as an extended stay?
Right now, yes, its current use is an extended stay
And then,
hotel.
so would 100% of the occupants in your project be low-income people, or would it be a mix?
They would be. We have a housing grant from the state of Utah for a substantial part of the acquisition income, and they would have guidelines that we have to follow for reporting and for adherence to their policies also on the property.
You mentioned the permanent supportive housing. This is not permanent supportive housing. This is deeply affordable housing.
Correct.
What's the distinction?
You're probably better at explaining it. I just did research this week, so you're probably better.
Yes, it has to do with wraparound services. In a deeply affordable project like this, there are a lot of services that are needed for tenants. A lot of that has to do with helping them acquire, either food or clothing or something like that. So we typically have those items available for tenants. Not necessarily all of them are using it, but some of them do. Mental health services can be provided, not required, but provided. Job, that we try to typically have something for our tenants to help them find income or sources of income that they can go achieve. Permanent supportive is kind of the 24-hour type care.
What services are you planning on having at this project?
We
Of
will
the ones you
have,
mentioned.
yeah, so we'll have a couple of case managers is really it. It would be the main people there, and their job is to really help the people stay housed, not do lease violations, not do things that may have in the past prohibited them from having housing. So those people will be on site and help direct them to the resources that are available in the county, like food,
Like food pantries and
pantries, things like that. Yes, exactly. Jobs, whatever. But that's what we do. But the main thing is to keep them in their housing.
Is this your development background? experience with this?
No, actually, no. I fell into this by accident. I was what would you call it? I can't even think of the name anymore, but basically a poorly run asset. I would go out, I would remodel them, try to get them into a condition where I could sell them or do something like that. I bought my first one in West Haven in 2019, right in the middle of COVID. Every door was kicked in, every window was broken. There was prostitution and drugs and things like that being run out of the property. I renovated it, and as soon as I renovated it, somebody handed me cash and said, "Can I move in?" And it happened 35 times on all the units, and I realized, how deep is this problem? And from that, I was quickly introduced to another hotel in Salt Lake that we call Ville 9. It was being run as a brothel. The owner got arrested for prostitution. And then so we showed up and bought that property, got the development plan finished on it, and got it proposed for another 30 doors. We were running it successfully, and then I-15 is going to widen, and it's under eminent domain now for that. So we had to stop our development on that property, and now we're waiting for that one to be taken down. We did one in Logan where we won the Utah Housing Matters Award for that property. At the same time that Salt Lake did the, what's it called? The Magalay, something like, I can't remember the name of it exactly, but they housed 65 tenants there. It cost them $18 million in 3 years to get it done. We did Logan in 6 months, 63 doors, and it cost us about $3.6 million. And it was a great property. So the nice thing about a reuse like this, if Murray really had a super strong desire to go out and create an affordable housing project from ground up, it would take 3 to 5 years. It would take close to that, 18 to 20 something million dollars. And by the time you're done, it really becomes unaffordable and unattainable. And then your housing crisis that you had today is 5 years down the road. So it was one of those projects that when we did it, it allowed us to get that award from Utah Housing. So that was nice to get that. And that kind of was the catalyst that kicked me into this career.
All right. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate your comments. All right. I'll now open up the meeting for public comment. As a reminder, if you'd like to make a comment on this agenda item, you can come to the podium. Please state your name and your address in the microphone for public record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And just so you know, if there's a lot of comments, I know we want to kind of answer it in the moment, but we'll take all the questions and comments and then we'll write them down and answer them at once after everybody's had their public comment. So I'll go ahead and open up the public comment.
I have some pictures that I would like to. I'm a nervous wreck, so just understand. My name is Mary Ann Ross. We live, my husband and I, and we raised 5 kids at 875 East Silver Shadow Drive, which is directly west of Wheeler Farm. So we did not get notice because we're I think 1,000 feet away. But anyway, after learning Mr. Keith Warburton wanted to turn the old Studio 6 to deeply affordable, and she's already explained that that's 30% or less of the medium income. So that's a definite limit that they can have. I did some research. Article. It was from failed homeless housing. Thank you. I'm losing my place by the Okay, trying to think. Anyway, there was a podcast done by Utah Stories. Mr. Robertson has received several financial grants to convert property into low-cost housing. One was a grant for the old Ramada Inn on Redwood Road in North Temple. He did mention that one. This had 200 units. He received a large sum of money, $2 million. He renovated a couple of the rooms, he got the approval, and he was then supposed to complete half the units by April of '23. And that was so that the homeless that were residing in the winter overflow shelter at Mill Creek could transition into the facility rather than go back on the streets. This did not happen. Nothing happened. Eventually, the property was sold to Larry H. Miller. Mr. Warburton had a facility in Elko, which was raided by SWAT for drug trafficking. He currently owns the Salt City Inn at 1025 North, 900 West, which I think he was referring to, which is not deeply affordable, but the one where they have to monitor everything. He's done 2 units there and is supposed to be completing that facility. According to the Tribune, there are a couple of tenants there, and the local businesses are complaining that his current tenants are living there are trafficking and using drugs. What's to stop that happening here? How will this benefit Murray residents? Once Mr. Warburton gets the funds from the state, which is taxpayer money, does he have complete control? Is this a one-time grant? Does the state, county, or city have any oversight? Do they make random inspections, such as does the person have a job? Who vets the tenants to make sure they qualify? Do they check for drug use or commercial background? Do they check this list? An important thing, because this is located right next to Wheeler Farm, and that's a family-oriented facility. We drove by Palmer Court, which is on Main Street in Salt Lake. This is another affordable housing project. I'm not sure who owns it, but nearly every window, which you'll notice in one of those pictures, is either covered up by cardboard or aluminum foil. The blinds are all broken. The outside is not kept up. And the other picture is that of the Salt City Inn, which is the one he is currently working on. And we didn't see anything done. We drove by both of them. What happens if you can't keep this facility running? Who pays for the water, electricity, etc.? What if Mr. Warburton decides to switch to permanent supportive housing? Is there any control that will prevent him from doing that? Most of those tenants are those that cannot find normal housing. They're tenants that have criminal backgrounds, drug and mental illness. Murray would have no control. I realize there is a need for these facilities, but I don't believe they should be put in or near residential family housing or anywhere close to parks such as Wheeler Farm. Unfortunately, crime follows homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Drew Ross. I'm the quiet half of this dynamic duo. I've lived at 875 Silver Shadow Drive for 46 years. And I've seen it transition from a small 2-lane 9th East highway to a 9th East speedway and drag strip. I've seen crime occur and grow rapidly because of the property that is there. I was hoping to live out the last years of my life, not having to worry every night that I go to bed about who's patrolling and who's trolling the streets that we live on. I live only 1,000 feet from that extended stay hotel. And I would like to, before you make a vote on this, to table the decision you make and have somebody on your council study the properties that are out there, and those that are by Mr. Warburton and those that are not by Mr. Warburton. See what is, how it works. How is it working in the community? What are the pluses and what are the minuses? And does it really need to come to Murray? Do we really need it there? Particularly, I know it's convenient because it's an existing building, but I'd rather see it be an all-commercial building and with dentist office and medical facilities and real estate and insurance companies, et cetera. So before you make a decision, I wish that somebody would do a little research to see how these facilities are working in other locations around the state of Utah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Lorenz Rindliswacker. I'm a neighbor to Sherman Marianne Ross. I just have one question. My experience with engineering and architectural would be that if a building is such a problem, erase it, take it down, get rid of it. Why would you reinvent more crime and more distaste in a building that is already known for that purpose? We have another motel on Winchester that is also in that same position where if you can make the payment for one night, you can do it by panhandling on 9th East. My question is, please understand that a building that is already in disarray, already pulling in homeless and drug relationships, get rid of the building and start something else. Make it a nice neighborhood, which we could have, and keep this kind of stuff out. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going? My name's Ian Galanis. I'm representing Investment Property Group. We own, operate, and manage the Merrill Lynch building across the street from the former Studio 6. A lot of the complaints about crime have come from us, so it is well documented that it has had a lot of issues. We've worked with, Murray PD and fire and a lot of the health services and trying to, come up with solutions. I'll do my best to keep this to a land use issue and as it pertains to zoning. There were some comments about the general office market in the area and overall, which is true. That being said, we're 100% leased. About 80% of our tenants are national credit tenants, and we have done a lot of damage control to keep them there with this property. In considering a rezone of this, not just this property, but this area, this is a unique opportunity for Murray to come up with something that doesn't just, this is a direct entrance to the southern portion of Murray. And so, doing a spot zone or a single development agreement for this, I think, is premature. I think you guys need to, I think there should be some oversight into the whole area and what it really needs. As the resident, Marianne, had mentioned, being next to Wheeler Farm is a unique aspect, not just to Murray, but to the state. The farmers market attracts people all across the county. And so to do something at this area, I think it needs to really have some thought. Some questions on the plans and unit renovations. Commissioner Jake had brought up questions of dollars that are going into the units as opposed to the outside. That's a big concern of ours. Obviously, being across the street, we've been there since 2013 and have seen, obviously the disarray that has happened over the last 10, 12 years. And so I would make sure that guardrails and, whatever is in a development agreement make sure that those improvements are actually being done. It looks like, so those units are actually have kitchenettes in them already. I have been through them, so they have, you know, fridges, stovetops, and sinks. And so how much of the renovations of the units are actually being done, or are they just converting commercial from the existing units? And lastly, yeah, I just think there was, am I okay adjusting this? Can go to the next, there's the findings page. So it says that 5 of these have to satisfy for a rezone. So high quality redevelopment, I mean, what qualifies for a high quality redevelopment? How much, you know, what do those upgrades need to look like? And then specifically on H, would a redevelopment of this actually create and contribute to a sense of place and community? Is this going to be a place where the tenants of our building are going to want to go over and use these commercial spaces? You know, you have Utah Power and Light Credit Union. Are they going to want to go over and use these commercial spaces? You know, what does that look like? And so I would just like the Planning Commission and Murray City to consider really the overall aspect of a rezone of the entire area and really make this the southern gateway to Murray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Anything, any emails come in?
Yes, we have discontinued looking at emails during the meeting, so, yeah, yep.
I'll
So
stop
we're,
asking for that.
no problem, yeah.
All right, so seeing no additional public comment, I will close the public comment and bring it back for discussion amongst the commissioners.
I have 2 questions. I guess the first question is, does staff want to respond to any of the comments made? And I do have a question for the applicant as well.
Yeah, so, sorry. Go ahead, I have several questions.
It's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to respond to some of those, I can,
Yeah, if you'll respond in terms of what notes you took, and then I'll maybe fill in some gaps of what the notes I took.
Sure. I think, you know, a lot of the things that we heard tonight were discussion about some of the things that have been going on there. You know, crime, we talked about in the initial presentation that's well documented. We agree with that. That's one of the reasons why, you know, I think the city is seeking some solutions for the property is to try to address some of those crime issues. I don't know that I have much more to say about that. I think in terms of the questions that were just asked, I think those are legitimate questions about the investment that, and perhaps the applicant can answer the dollars into the units versus the outside. I think that's a fair question to ask. I think you have already indicated that you'd like to have a little more accountability based on having a timing, which is another way we can help to make sure that those things are completed. And then, you know, I think the last question was really, to me, the crux of what we're doing here tonight. I mentioned in the pre-meeting that this is really a good example of what your role is, as a planning commission that's actually articulated in state law. This is the job that you do as planning commissioners, is decide whether or not these types of developments meet these findings. And you make that recommendation to the city council. It's such a valuable resource the city council has that you as citizen planners can make these findings. So in reality, we've made the finding, but it really is, you know, as a planning commission, it is up to you to decide whether or not you do feel like this is a high quality development. I mean, that is the finding that you're looking to make. And all those findings that we brought up, all what is there, 9 there? We've talked about 5 or 6 ourselves. The applicant provided some response to a little bit more of those, but again, that is why you're here tonight, to decide whether or not you feel that this does meet those findings. I don't know that I have, and if there's others that you'd like to talk about, I'm happy to try to address that. I think there was one other question about why not knock down the building. I think that's one of the it's been articulated by the applicant, but that's one of the reasons why they feel that they can create this affordable housing development is because the cost would be lower than constructing a brand new building. So that's the reason why. Again, it's one of those things that we have to discuss as a planning commission and decide is that best for this property? That's a good land use question, whether or not this is the best thing or whether the current general plan is best or whatever that case may be. That's up for you to decide.
Thank you. And I agree. I think the crux of it is the last question, and I've got a couple thoughts on that. But I want to go back first to, I think it was Marianne Ross's questions around, prior projects and money being given. Can you reiterate that there's no money that Murray City is giving to the project?
No, the city's not going to contribute to this project in terms of that affordable housing. The word just escaped me. Subsidy. Thank you. There's no subsidy being offered by Murray City. I think that the applicants explained that there's an application process through the state and other entities to gain that. So there's no funding going in from the city. The city's role really is just limited to land use in this case. It's again, there's no partnership here. It's a question of if they build this particular development as articulated in the development agreement, then they can have the zoning that they're requesting. If they don't, then that zoning doesn't apply. So that's really the limit of that. I felt like there was one more thing you had there.
Can you articulate the guardrails specifically that we talked about in the pre-meeting, just so that everybody here can understand, like if the project doesn't meet, what's in the stipulation, what happens?
Thanks. Yeah, the development agreement is there to conditionally approve a zone change. So if the developer does not complete the development as proposed, as we've shown some of the slides on the screen, these are very conceptual. They'll have to go through, as the applicant indicated, and come back to the city for the actual building permits and the land use approval for the site plan from the planning commission. So if those things are not completed, then that zoning can be rescinded. It can be reverted back to the previous zoning, and then those approvals go away.
And we'll monitor this to make sure that things are happening, and because I think that was the main concern that was being conveyed, is that, like, how are we going to monitor the guardrails that we're putting into this?
Right. So the process that would monitor that would be starting, if this were to be approved by the city council after a recommendation from the planning commission, the process would be they would have to come back to the planning commission for a land use approval that's administrative. They'd just be looking at, do you comply with the standards of the VMU zone at that point? So they'd come back for that review. Once that's completed, there'd be another step, which would be building permit, where we would have to look at he mentioned architectural drawings. An architect would have to create those drawings. We'd have to review those for compliance with building codes. And then a building permit would be issued once they met those codes. So that's another place where we check on that. Additionally, there'll be some type of a business license required for this use. So that is another thing that would have to be completed. And that's something that we can annually monitor to make sure that we still have compliance with those conditions of the development agreement. So there are several steps that we have that we can monitor compliance throughout this process.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
In regards to the time frame, would you recommend, if we wanted to put that in there, that we make a recommendation to the council that we approve this contingent upon them completing the project in 2 years? Is that how we would do that? If we
Yeah,
wanted to do
I think
that?
that's good. Development agreements routinely include a time frame. We can craft that language to make sure it meets legal requirements of the development agreement, but you can certainly put a deadline on completion. What we would suggest is that would be essentially, of course, this is going to be a project that goes on after the work's been completed, right? So we would just say for completion of that initial construction and establishment of that use would be a 2-year time frame.
Okay.
But that's, I think we've heard from the applicant that he feels like that would be a reasonable time frame. That does, based on our review time periods that we'd have to go through, that seems reasonable to us as well. To have 2 years.
Chad, isn't really the question we're looking at here is whether we feel that the VMU is appropriate for this parcel, notwithstanding what we think about the specific project, right? Whether we want to keep it as a general office or whether we feel that it's better served, better utilized by making the change, correct?
Yeah.
Isn't that the fundamental issue here?
That's the big issue, the
Right.
broad issue. In this particular case, we're coming down to maybe the next level, so we're going from 30,000 maybe to 25. We're not getting down to ground level yet, but we're saying not only that, but to make sure we get a project that meets that VMU standard for having a mixed-use project, having a commercial component, we want to put some guardrails that say you have to build this particular project. We think that's appropriate because of, again, the uniqueness of this property, its location, the history of it with the issues we've had with deterioration and crime. We think it's important to know exactly what we're getting in this particular case. And I think for this property, that would apply to anybody coming in for a zone change to VMU, whether it was an affordable housing project or not. We'd want to see what it was they were doing to make sure we were getting the right development, the right fit there.
Yeah, and somewhat connected, and I think we touched on this, but it goes back to the comment about being a bit premature to spot zone this or to make this a VMU. Is this just because this is the first application that's come to do something with that project, or do we really feel like that this is the best recommendation from staff that we go in a VMU direction?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's always, there's unlimited possibilities, I guess you could say, for what could occur there. I think what we're saying is that in this particular case, the code recognized that you all would need some guidance because this zoning is meant to be kind of a, if you want to call it a spot zone. Spot zones, there's nothing inherently illegal or wrong about a spot zone. They happen all the time. They're actually allowed in state law. But what my point is that because this zone is meant to be one of those that's placed in various places around the city, it's a village mixed use rather than our downtown mixed use. The code gives you some criteria and says, if you can find that it meets these criteria, at least 5 of these, then that's an appropriate use of that zoning designation. And I think that's, from staff's standpoint, that's what we've done. We've looked at the findings. We try to step back from a lot of the issues related to, all these other issues that we talked about that are important issues, but from staff's perspective, we're trying to give you a professional recommendation based on land use. So we try to be a little bit dispassionate about that and say, does it meet these, at least 5 of these criteria? Based on our review, we recommend it does. That being said, this is a reasonably debatable standard. You all have very broad discretion. You can say, thank you, staff. We don't agree. So it's up to, it really is a policy decision, but we do feel that it does meet that standard of review, which, again, thankfully, the code in this case says this is what you ought to look for if you're going to approve this zone.
Chad, I have a question. I just want to make sure I'm really clear. Typically, when we do a zone change, we do not consider a specific project. But today we are, because of the development agreement. We are considering this, and we are also considering the project combined, correct?
That's right. So you're
So
considering
it's not our
that.
typical
Yep.
way of doing it. Okay.
It's the broad project, getting the guardrails of this is the maximum number of units you can have, this is the minimum number of commercial square footage you can have. So it doesn't get into all the details of that VMU zone, but that'll come back to you later. And the development agreement says they have to meet those standards. So
Yeah, so the answer to that is broadly, yes.
that's correct. Yeah, broadly, you are approving the development. You're
But I think
entitling this type of
For me and
development.
a lot of us, it's, it meets these 5 requirements, but in the projected project, but will it actually comply with what we think it's going to be? And that's for us to.
Yeah, yep, that's part of that's that policy decision, and then part of it is, again, we've tried to address the future compliance with the VMU in that development agreement by saying you have to, that this development has to comply with the standards.
So I appreciate the concept of the VMU and I appreciate staff for the thinking about it. I walked this property, I drove by it for over the years many times and I just decided to walk past it yesterday. It's a very nice parcel of land which abuts the Wheeler Farm and it's got really easy access to 215 and then the other commercial properties. I just, in my mind, question whether the highest and best use isn't to just keep it as a commercial zone for some potential project in that area, because I think it's pretty valuable, 3.2 acres with land values. I would think that there's probably a lot of attractive possibilities. But aside from changing the zoning, and also irrespective of the potential complications of the development agreement and the project itself. That's just my thinking about it.
Well, I think That's a really good point. For me, it's like competing. We want to have people live in places and have affordable housing. And to your point, it's a good piece of commercial property, but
Yeah, and if you look at that area, 'cause I walk that trail almost every day, right? But does it really, is it a walkable neighborhood if it's like gonna be a mixed-use development? You know, you've got those corporate entities there. People are gonna walk down there and have a cup of coffee or whatever they have. I'm really conflicted by making that change to that kind of use, notwithstanding what the project is in front of us.
Can I ask the applicant
yes.
a question?
Can the applicant please come back to the podium?
Thanks. Do you have an idea of how much money will be invested into this property during the renovation?
Yes, it's close to 4 million.
And would you be against, if we decided to move forward, would you be against us putting a number, a requirement number into the redevelopment agreement?
Yes. I think what it would come down to, right, is what the building permit would look like from the city in order to meet the code. I think it would be unfair to ask a developer or a builder, even somebody building their own home, if they're meeting the zone requirement and the building requirement, to have to add a decorative window or a fancy door in front
Let
of
me
it.
explain why.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have to come up with 5 of these things.
Uh-huh.
And one of them that was picked was result in a high-quality redevelopment. And if you go in and put, somehow, you already have kitchens and you slap a coat of paint on there and slap a number on the door, I don't feel like that's a high-quality redevelopment of the property.
Sure.
And you're telling me that's not what you're going to do. You're telling me you're going to invest almost $4 million.
Correct.
But if I don't feel comfortable that this is going to meet requirement A, then we don't have 5 of these goals met.
Yeah, I would suggest some other things with high quality, which would be the appropriate mixed use on the property, the right, commercial, the right tenant availability. I think having access to different types of housing in Murray is super helpful and adds to the quality of it. But I understand what you're saying as far as here's the issue, right? And I've been with some of the tenants in the Merrill Lynch building, looking out their window and have them say, look, there's people camping over there, Keith, and if you can do anything with it, we're all for it. So I've been in the building and looked across the street and seen the people like pitching tents in that open field. And so that's not what anybody wants. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. But I want to do it as a project that is favorable to the city. I don't want to come in and be a continued blight like what we see there now, right? So I will do the things that I think would make it look like a nice, presentable property. And whether that's, the appropriate, paint and look of the buildings are already really kind of nice buildings. They're just not been taken care of. I believe that and I haven't been in a lot of the units, but I believe some of the units have granite countertops, right? And granite countertops with new appliances and a new sink is higher quality than a Formica kind of entry-level price point property. So I do want to make it high quality, and that's the problem with this one. That number A is it does come down to what would you determine, as high quality versus somebody else.
Well,
And so, yeah, but I think the guardrails is what is fair, because what you would require of somebody in the city code, you would require of me. And I think that if we were all living to that fair and equal standard, that would be enough.
Doesn't the form-based code require some sort of aesthetic conditions? I think it's a question for Chad, but doesn't that apply to this?
No, because it's.
This is outside of the form-based code area, but there are some codes that apply
that's
to the
right.
VMU
Okay. Thank
standards,
you.
which they'll have to meet. Yeah, they'd have to meet those basic standards. We've tried on that broad level, we've worked with Keith on what those big standards are. For example, how much of that space has to be commercial to meet the minimum standard for the VMU. But, some of those other standards, we haven't gotten to that detailed review, which would come back to you for compliance with landscaping and those types of things.
Thank you.
I think, Keith, here's my concern.
Sure.
I actually believe that if this all went forward and is developed, it probably would be a better property than it sits right now. And I agree that if we just knock this building down and build something new, that would be great. Obviously, that hasn't been done. It's been sitting there for a long, long, long time, and that hasn't been done. And as, a commission or a city, it's not, we can't just go, hey, let's knock down the building, go buy the land and build. I mean, I guess we could do that, but that's not what we're here for. And so I can see the vision. I am falling short of this high quality redevelopment, especially when, I hear what you're saying. You're saying I'm going to build this great place. And, I've seen you one time in this room, and I want to believe you. I just don't know if I can.
Let me give you an example of up in Logan, right? Our Logan property was an Econo Lodge. And now it's probably our best operating property, bounces around at 97 to 100% occupancy with a variety of people that are right on Main Street. And it was a concern, right? It was a concern property for Logan. And now it's not. Police calls go down almost 90% right off the bat, right when we start getting the right kind of guidelines and stuff on the property. So, but people will come up and say, this used to be an old hotel. And the answer is yes, we can't change that. That's really what the program was when it started, right? Because that's what it's going to look like. But it's going to be improved, and it's going to be, the landscaping around this project was once great. There's a lot of great mature trees, and the way that you can come in off the freeway right directly into it, it actually could look really nice, if the landscaping was just maintained, because it is a lot more landscaping than you'd ever see around a normal hotel. And I think if the landscaping was maintained and the property, like broken gutters and things like that were maintained right, it would be a very, pleasing property to see. So I get what you're saying, but yeah, it's really hard to take an adaptive reuse and make it where you can't see that it was a reuse.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked you how much money you were going to put into the property, because I wanted your number, right? I didn't want to come up and say, hey, I want you to put, $10 million in this property. You came up with a number, and then when, I asked if you're willing to, even if we said, hey, we want you to invest at least $3 million in this property, would you be okay with that?
Right. And usually I would not disclose that number to you, but I wanted you to get the grasp that it's a substantial economic investment for us.
So there's no amount of money you would be comfortable agreeing to in the development agreement?
I just don't think it's one that can be used in that kind of a thing, because like, let's say, for example, we're able to do it in a really efficient way, and we come in short of our development budget. We actually did something well, but I'm being penalized because I didn't hit the number in the development agreement. And then all of a sudden I have to go,
I understand.
spend more money in order to keep my zoning. I don't think that that's a fair request.
I understand.
I think it's a fair request to say, stay within these guidelines of the development agreement, but not an economic one.
I understand your position. I appreciate it. I'm having a hard time feeling like we're going to get a high quality redevelopment out of it. It's my only concern.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, these ones are hard because I think hopefully the audience sees that, we're trying to talk this through. We kind of have two sides of us. We're Murray residents, and we certainly want to do the right thing here. It's also difficult sometimes not to be biased by some of, the things that have been brought up of previous projects. But, our task is really to look at this from an objective as possible lens and make a decision from there. So I think if there isn't any additional discussion, we can entertain a motion.
Chair, I agree with your sentiment there. The thing in my mind is that this would be the first VMU change that we're making. And I'm not sure that all the commercial possibilities for this land use, the existing land use, have been explored fully. And I commend the idea behind the project, but there seems to be so many moving parts that I'm not sure in my mind that it's justified to make the zoning change.
I have to agree with Peter. I did an embarrassingly amount of research on this because I was like, this is my neighborhood. And so this is important to me as a citizen. And I actually think that this project could be really, really cool. I think it's a cool thing. I just am not 100% sure that right by the farm and that this is, like we said, a great commercial space. I'm not fully convinced that this is the right location, and it's not the project, it's the location for me that I'm not 100% sold on.
So if we said no, so if we said no, and we want to wait for something else, and that's our decision because we don't agree with changing the zone, what happens?
So you would make a recommendation to the city council. It will still go before the city council, regardless of what your recommendation is. They'll have a chance to either go with your recommendation or go in a different direction at their discretion. They're given the final authority on legislative. Should the council approve it, of course, the project moves forward. Should the council determine to deny the application, then there would be a waiting period of a year before a zone change could come back.
That's what I think I was getting at. Thank you.
Yep.
We can sit here for a second and noodle on it.
I just want to just state some thoughts while we're sitting here thinking about it. I'm not an expert, so you can take this as it is, but in my research, just having low income housing doesn't increase the crime rate of the area. And I do think that crime would probably go down based on what currently is there. So, that's obviously appealing if we could really make the area better. If we were actually able to get commercial people in the bottom of that building or those buildings, I think that would also be great. I'm afraid that they may sit vacant because of where it's at, but I don't know that. And it could be an awesome project. It really could be. It could look nice, and we could have some affordable housing for people, and it would be maybe better than what it is. But I do feel I'm struggling with the same thing as other commissioners are. I'm not 100% sure that VMU is the right fit for this area. I'm not convinced enough to make a motion one way or the other, though.
A good question here. What if we don't make a motion? What happens?
There's a variety of motions you can make, of course, but we do need to have a decision on the
That's what I
application. So your options tonight are to either recommend approval, recommend denial of the request, You can recommend that the item be tabled. If you're ready to make a decision, though, I don't think there's really any reason to table the item. Unless there's some item that you feel like would help you with your decision, we could certainly look at that. But those are really the options. We can't simply not act on an item. We need to make some decision.
Can you put those up on the screen again? The motion?
The motion, oh, sure.
And the council can
The
override,
amendment,
council can override our recommendation, right?
the council can either follow your recommendation or choose to go another way. Yeah,
But they could approve it.
they could approve,
Yeah.
they could, if you
Yeah, and
recommend approval, they can deny. It's really up to them, yeah.
And if we do make a motion to approve, we would stipulate the 2-year, right?
Yeah, so let me ask a question. If I make the motion, that's not my vote. I could vote either way, correct?
Sure, yeah, you don't have
okay.
to vote.
So I'll
for
make the motion, Chair, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion, please.
I'll make it. I will make a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment for the future land use. Sorry, I'm interrupting my own motion. Should I do the future land use map first?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start over. Sorry. I am going to make a motion that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment to the future land use map, redesignating the property located at 975 East, 6600 South from office to village and centers mixed use, subject to the approval of a development agreement and also with the condition that the development is done within 2 years.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Pearson that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the requested amendment of the future land use map, redesignating the property located at 975 East, 6600 South from office to village and centers mixed use, subject to approval of a development agreement and with the additional condition of a 2-year timeframe. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Histo. Wait, so I'm sorry, do we do these separately? Okay. So I have a second, Commissioner Histo. Let's take a roll call vote.
I had a question on the
Yep.
motion.
Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be simpler to, if I'm reading this room correctly right now, to simply make a recommendation of denial?
The only reason I think it's better to not do a recommendation, if we make a recommendation of denial, then we're done talking about that. Where if I make a recommendation of approval, we could potentially modify my statement. Am I correct in saying that? And then I can make another motion, but if we deny it, then we're done. So if I make a recommendation of approval and it's not approved, we could potentially restate another recommendation.
No, if you deny, that's your recommendation at that point. If a vote against a positive recommendation is the recommendation. So it's denied at that point.
Okay. My understanding was differently, but my understanding if it was a recommendation to deny it, then we have denied that. But if we make a recommendation to approve it, it wasn't approved, but it technically wasn't denied, and we can make it amended a motion.
So the
that
motion
not
to
true?
approve will have failed if you don't get enough votes, and that is the motion on the, we don't have an opportunity to make another motion at that point.
Either way, we're just recommending, right?
No, I understand that.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately, I don't.
Yeah, so I
Fine.
think we keep it as it's been proposed and we do the vote.
I didn't mean to complicate it.
I'm fine with
Thank you.
that.
It's okay. We'll do a vote on the second one.
Right.
All right, Ruth, I think, or no, it's Chad.
Just one more quick
thing.
Because this is two-part, you have to have a general plan amendment in order for the zone change to go forward. So, if that motion fails, then there wouldn't be a need for a motion on the second item there.
So if there's more no votes on the first one, we don't even do the second one.
That's right. That would be forwarded to the city council in the minutes reflecting that the motion for the general plan was failed.
Okay, so let's take the vote.
Commissioner Pearson,
No.
Commissioner Herschel,
No.
Commissioner Rogers,
No.
Commissioner Hildreth,
No.
Commissioner Kling,
No.
Chair Richards.
It's tough. I'm going to go with no. Okay, so we won't do the request to amend the Murray City zoning map because there was a unanimous no vote. So like Chad said, I guess the next step is to go to the Murray City Council. Anything else, Chad? I'm sorry. Okay.
No, just again, for the members of the public here and the applicant's sake, this will be scheduled at a future city council date. We don't know exactly what that will be, but probably September timeframe.
The city council gets the benefit of what we've discussed tonight?
They'll have
Their
they'll have a recording of the minutes from what you discussed, yep.
Okay, that is the end of our formal agenda. Thank you for being here and for your participation. Are there any additional announcements for this group?
So I have right now Commissioner Kling and Commissioner Richards that want to attend that conference. Are there any others that have thought about it and would like us to get you registered?
Put me down, yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Chad, I will as well. Fine.
Okay, great, thanks, Pete. Anybody else?
I'll let you know.
Thanks, yeah, just let us know. Yep, we have a little bit of time, so yep. We'll get the rest of you registered and you should get an email confirming that, so.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned at 8:05 PM.